Hey guys, welcome to Life Talks. Thank you for being here. We have a word of encouragement for you, even though this is a time of great uncertainty. This is a time where things are happening. There's worldwide pandemic and people dying of diseases and a great upheaval in the world, which brings incredible uncertainty. We don't know what's going to happen in the future, but I got to tell you, God is not surprised. He knows everything that's happening. And even the plans of the enemy and the plans of the kings of the earth who want to rebel against him, he laughs. He knows all of what's happening. And I want to share with you something amazing that has been a benefit for my life for a long time. It's in Psalm 91. This chapter is incredibly revealing. And I want to share this treasure with you because in times like these, we need the supernatural protection and help of God. And this is just what it brings for times like these. And let's just start with verse 1. And it says, "Those who live in the shelter of the Most High will find rest in the shadow of the Almighty." That is amazing. And this verse is the key to all of the other verses that follow. And so what this is saying is that as we live in the presence of God, those who rest in the shadow of the Almighty means those who find Him, who find refuge in Him, those who are living out of the presence of God. These are the people that will find rest. These are the people that all the rest of the verses are talking about. So even this holds the key. And the refuge is His presence. And to be in His presence, we must remain in Him. Just like it says in John 15:4, when Jesus says, "Remain in me, and I will remain in you. For a branch cannot produce fruit if it is severed from the vine, and you cannot be fruitful unless you remain in me." And so that's what Jesus is talking about. So Psalm 91 is not for everybody. It's for those who live in the presence of God, who are connected to the vine, who have Him. And then when you're there, all of the rest of the chapter follows. It's amazing. In verse 2, it says, "This I declare about the Lord. He alone is my refuge, my place of safety. He is my God in whom I trust." What do you take refuge in when things get difficult? Where do you find your refuge? Because that's where we're going to find it when big things happen. So when we find our refuge in Him, in the little things, that will enable us that when the big and scary things come, we will run towards Him as a refuge and strength. So what do you take refuge in? Many people take refuge in even alcohol, drugs, even sexual perversion in some way or another, which satisfy for a moment, but don't satisfy everything and are just a fleeting moment. But what really satisfies is the refuge in God. And so now's the time to train yourself in when little things happen, what do you refuge in? Even people will refuge in food or watch a whole series of movies or whatever, but are we refuging in Him? And if we learn to do that in these little things, when the big things come, we'll be able to refuge. And when the pandemics come, when the world seems to be falling apart, we'll be able to refuge in Him. And there's been times in my life where things have been so crazy, so much pressure, so much stress, and I'll be paralyzed emotionally by negative situations, fear, despair, disappointment, complete uncertainty. And in these times, I've literally fallen to the ground and cried out to God, say, "Jesus, only you. If you don't come, I'm not getting up. And I need you so bad, and I'm not getting up unless you come and heal me." And it's in those times that I wait until He comes. And He breaks through my accusing, invisible enemies that are trying to keep me down. And these times it's like a white blanket comes over me of peace. And it's His presence. And He just lifts all of these things off of me that are accusing and all these thoughts. He is my refuge. I trust in Him even when I don't know the reason for the storm I'm in. And it's same for you. When we don't know, when He doesn't give us the answers to our questions that we want of why the storm is happening or what is going on, we still trust in him. I don't need to understand why, but I do need to trust my faithful friend. And I can trust him even when it's hard, but I can. And if I don't trust him, it'll be hard for him to help me. In verse 3, it says, "For he will rescue you from every trap and protect you from deadly diseases." Wow. This reminds me of a time when we were directing this children's center, and there was a disease that came in this children's center. It was chickenpox. We had like 5 rooms in this center, and chickenpox started in one room. And it started... is contagious. So a lot of kids in this room, and it affected another room and another room and another room. And soon, all but one of our classrooms had chickenpox in it, multiple cases. And we were at a point we needed about to shut this place down. When I finally realized that the teacher of the room that had no cases of chickenpox carried the presence of God greater than anybody else. And so I went to her and I asked, I said, "Listen, why is it that what happened?" And she said, "Well, when the chickenpox came, I prayed and I said, 'Here no more.' And I anointed the door. I said, 'This chickenpox is not going to enter my classroom.'" And there were kids in her classroom that were siblings of kids in the other classrooms. Now, it's impossible that they did not have chickenpox because they live in these rooms, these rented rooms. In one room, 10 by 10, you'll have 4 to 8 kids sleeping on the floor using the same blankets and same everything. So it's impossible for them not to get this chickenpox. And they didn't have it. And I said, "Listen, this is something's going on here. If the presence of God keeps this chickenpox from happening here, we're going to send you and our coordinator up to the room where this chickenpox started and want you to kick this out of this place." And so they walked, and they walked over the doorstep of the classroom that it started. And as soon as they walked over, within 30 seconds, chickenpox started to appear on their cheeks. And they were like, "What? This is of the enemy. This is a lie of the enemy. Look at this. This is a spiritual attack." And they said, the coordinator said, "I'm going to pray for you, and then you pray for me." And as the coordinator prayed for this other teacher, in 30 seconds, the chickenpox that had appeared just vanished. And then she did it for the coordinator, and those chickenpox on her face just vanished. And they said, "The devil's a liar. This is getting out of here in Jesus' name." They prayed, and literally within 1 week, there were no more cases, and all the children were healing up. Within 2 weeks, chickenpox was completely gone. There was no sign of it. And it's amazing that God took this pestilence away. In the same manner, he can do it for you. In the same manner, he can take the pestilence away from you. We don't have to fear. He is with us when we find our refuge in him, in his presence. In Psalm 91, verse 4, it says, "He will cover you with his feathers. He will shelter you with his wings." Just amazing. His shelter is real. This is not just a spiritual thing that happens. It manifests in the physical. It is real shelter that he gives us. Jesus was talking about this when he said, "I want to gather you, Jerusalem, like children, together as a hen protects her chicks beneath her wings. But you wouldn't let me." So it's our choice to come underneath his wings. It's like a mother chicken that puts her wings out, and the little chickens come underneath her wings. So the mom doesn't move. The children move to find the refuge. And that's the same thing that we need to do. We need to find that refuge and move where that refuge is. Because God will have the refuge there, but we need to do something. We need to move into that refuge. Incredible. In 91 verse 5, Psalm 91 verse 5, it says, "Do not be afraid of the terrors of the night, nor the arrows that fly by day." The terror of the night is anything that can happen in your worst fears at night. Back then they had arrows. Today they have bullets, bombs, and missiles. And his peace protects our minds from the fear and from the real and horrible dangers. All this is happening, and it's him who is our refuge. I want to tell you a story about our family when there was nightmares happening. I would have a nightmare one night, maybe it would be my son, my daughter the next night, and we'd just go around. And finally I'd had enough. I said, "That is it. I'm getting up. We're gonna pray Psalm 91 because Psalm 91 is a promise for me and my family. And I put the kids to bed. So they're in their beds, and I've got one room over here, the boys' room, and the girls' room over here. And I stand in between, and I said, kids, I'm going to pray Psalm 91. I'm going to declare this over us in Jesus' name. And I start declaring Psalm 91 and reading through Psalm 91. And it's great protection. And my son, Alex, says, Dad, I'm praying here. Just wait. And so I keep on praying. He's trying to interrupt me. But I just say, no, I'm going to pray this through. And I prayed this through. And I said, Alex, what happened? Why are you interrupting me? And he said, Dad, when you began to pray, I saw an angel come right behind you. He was huge. He had this shining armor on, and he was not super happy. And he had this bow and arrow, and he was looking at whom to fire this bow and arrow at. And his armor was shiny. It was big and powerful. And at the same time, I saw these bats outside our window with wingspans of 10 feet long. And they were demons. They were trying to get into our house, but they could not get in because of the angel I saw protecting. And listen to this. In Psalm 91, 9 through 12, it says, if you make the Lord your refuge, if you make the Most High your shelter, no evil will conquer you. No plague will come near your home. For he will order his angels to protect you wherever you go. They will hold you up with their hands so that you won't even hurt your foot on a stone. And that's exactly what happened. And that supernatural protection is for all of those who find their refuge in the presence of God. Another instance happened when we were at this hotel ranch sort of thing in Colombia, and there was a loft that was 10 feet off the ground, and it was pretty big, and you could sleep up there. And so our whole family was sleeping in this area, and below the loft was just a concrete ground. And Gabe, our son Gabe, wanted to sleep up there at night. He was 4 years old at the time, and he went up there to sleep, and we turned off the lights, and it was so dark. It was pitch black. You couldn't see the hand in front of your face. And so we went to sleep that night, and I was woken up in the middle of the night with a vision of Jacob's ladder, of angels coming, going up and coming down. And I saw Jesus there, and he was looking towards the loft. And in that instant, I heard a thump on the ground. And it was Gabe who was trying to get down, but it was so dark he couldn't find the ladder, and he fell 10 feet, a 4-year-old, 10 feet, smack onto the ground. And immediately started praying, went over to him, got the lights on, lifted him up. Gabe was not crying. He wasn't surprised. He wasn't scared. He was completely normal, looking at me like, hey, Dad. You're like, I just fell 10 feet. And I looked at him, and he had just a small little scratch where apparently there was a corner of a table, but he was completely okay. And I believe that, literally angels just caught him as he's coming down. Nothing was hurt. In verse 14, it says, I will rescue those who love me. I will protect those who trust in my name. The Father looks at those who love him. Those are the ones who constantly seek him and remain in him. They are the ones who recognize him in everything they do. And in the last verses, 15 and 16, God is saying, when they call on me, I will answer. I will be with them in trouble. I will rescue and honor them. I will reward them with a long life and give them salvation. These are for the people who don't deny Jesus. The last two verses show the delight of God with the person who delights in him, with the person who develops a friendship with God, with this friendship and develops the presence of God. And today is the day to seek God with all of your heart. Call on him and he will answer you. He is right with you. And so let's just pray. I would ask that you just close your eyes, hold your hands out, and I'm just going to pray over you in Jesus' name. Father, light a fire of hunger for you and your presence and everyone listening to me. Give them the grace to take refuge in you instead of anything else, even in the little things. And give them the grace to do their will, to do your will, that every person would find refuge in you. In Jesus' name, amen.